Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. For many of us, pets are beloved members of our families. They provide us with unconditional love, companionship, and support. But what happens to them when they pass away? Do they simply cease to exist, or does a part of them remain with us? The following are two true stories of people who were visited by the ghosts of their pets. These encounters were not only deeply moving, but they also provided comfort and closure to those who experienced them. Jessie's owner gave this account. "Finally, my wish came true. My dog visited me following years of pleading to see him once more. In 2014, my dearest stinkball of a pooch, Jessie, departed from this world. He was a sprightly 14 years old. His heart had given up hastily and he left us in a flash. Consequently, I was not present during his final moments. My mum and I had been splitting the time looking after him between us. We alternated every 2 years. We picked him up from a guy who had 15 pups in a massive laundry basket in Morgan Hill, California. I was only 9 when my mum asked me to choose one. I was stoked. It had been a while since our previous dog Fritz, our Doberman, had passed away. However, the dog who had immediately drawn my attention was already in the arms of another girl. She looked to be about 19 years old, the same age I am now. She also had tattoos and piercings, just like I do. She claimed that the dog would belong to her as soon as her mother came out from the dentist's office. I was so furious that I almost started a fight with her. I demanded that she return the dog to me, and we exchanged some heated words. However, her mother soon emerged from the building and immediately scolded her, telling her to put the dog down. I quickly took advantage of the situation and snatched the dog out of her arms and politely thanked her for looking after him. I was a determined and bratty pain in the ass of a kid with a sharp tongue. We coughed up $15 for an exceptional dog. He was a blend of chow, husky and shepherd, resulting in a solid and sturdy boy. He was the size of a chow, with the markings of a shepherd and the fur of a husky. Jessie was a genius and knew over 85 commands. He never failed to put a smile on our faces and was certainly the most remarkable and intelligent dog we'd ever owned. I could talk about him endlessly. Anyway, in January 2014, we moved. My grandparents and I were relocating from New Mexico back to Washington. During our journey, we stopped in California, and I almost broke down when I had to hand him over to my mother. I had this indescribable feeling that it would be the last time I would lay my eyes on him. Although I didn't understand why, I made sure to shower him with all the love I could muster before leaving. Honestly, I was a bit annoyed with my mother because a small part of me believed that she wouldn't give him back. However, I didn't voice this concern or take it out on her, as I considered it to be merely a passing thought. Then it happened. In August, when my grandma and I were taking a dip in the lake. Suddenly, my phone rang, but for some reason I hesitated to answer it. When I finally checked, I saw the news, and our day at the lake came to an abrupt and heartbreaking end. It was as if the world stopped turning. I may sound a tad overdramatic, but I love my pets just as much as I do my own nieces and nephews, especially since, unfortunately, I can't bear kids of my own. After Jessie passed away, and until 2017, things were a mess in my family, and I was in a deep pit of depression. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, had moved in with me, which was a positive change, but I still couldn't shake off the feeling of despair. All I wanted at that time was to have one more glimpse of Jessie. The thought of seeing him again was the only thing that could bring me solace in those dark moments. Ever since Jessie passed away, I had been pleading with him to visit me in my dreams. Letting go of him was a difficult emotional challenge for me. We had lost all of our other dogs except for my grandma's chihuahuas, which she affectionately referred to as Mexican footballs, and the only furry companions I had been left with were my cats. However, I couldn't stop begging for Jessie to come visit me one last time. Then it finally happened. One night I was sound asleep, but somewhat conscious of what was happening around me. It's tough to explain, but my husband was sleeping next to me, very close. However, there was something else between us that I could sense. I could feel his presence, his shape, his warmth, and his wiry fur. It was an incredible feeling that made my skin tingle, and I could even sense his weight on me. But deep down, I knew that if I opened my eyes, he would vanish. Although it was bittersweet, I cherished the moment and savoured being able to lie down with my boy one more time, even if I couldn't see him with my eyes. I admit at this point that I'm a little greedy for continuing to wish for another visit from him. Deep down, I know he's probably got more important afterlife duties to attend to than fulfilling my petty desires. I'd like to think he's preoccupied watching over the pearly gates. My mama believes that our beloved dogs will guide us home. I hope she's right. Solomon's owner writes, "My lost and injured cat appeared to me only hours before passing away, but how he was able to do so defies possibility. I'm not the kind of person who believes in anything supernatural, and I'm certainly not a spiritual person either. 3 weeks ago, my beloved cat passed away while I held him in my arms. Our connection was something special. I discovered him as a kitten, and as he was crossing a treacherous rural laneway. I stopped my vehicle and he hopped onto my lap and snuggled up. From that moment on, he was mine. I'm a lover of animals and have had some extraordinary pets, but Solomon was different. I don't know how to explain it, but he had an almost magical quality about him. We even had our own unique way of communicating, our own little language. During the week he passed away, he had disappeared on the Monday. I sensed that something terrible had occurred because he never failed to respond to my calls. I scoured every possible spot, including my home, the forests and terrain around it, and even the lands belonging to each neighbour, for days. I even made arrangements to bring in sniffer dogs. If he was out there, I would have certainly located him. I was shattered. Then Wednesday rolled in. By this point, most of the folks helping me search, be they relatives or friends, were exhausted and losing hope. I can't deny it, I was feeling the same way. As the sun began to set, I readied myself to retire for the day. My body ached and my soul was weary, but I couldn't shake off this intense restlessness. So, for the first time on my own, I got my dog on a leash and set out to explore the property one final time. And that's when I sensed something. I was quickly losing visibility when, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed him sitting across the creek on the bank, a spot I had already checked numerous times. I hollered out to him and he turned his head to gaze at me, almost as if he was trying to distinguish my face to confirm it was genuinely me before replying. Then he took off, sprinting towards the house. There was something unusual about this exchange, but we'll circle back to that later. I hastened my way back to the house, proceeded to the area where I had caught a glimpse of him, and scoured the surroundings of the forest with what light remained from the quickly diminishing sun. However, as I searched, I had an intense and persistent urge to go back down to the basement, an area that I had explored numerous times earlier in the day. And lo and behold, in the basement he was. The instant I descended the stairs, I knew. He replied to my beckoning this time, just like he always had, but something was off. He couldn't budge. It turned out he had suffered a saddle thrombus, a massive blood clot which had obstructed all blood flow to his hind legs and tail. Solomon was unable to walk, much less travel or dash across vast acres to journey from his spot by the bank to the basement within the span of a few minutes, the amount of time which had elapsed between each of my encounters with him. He began to purr the instant I scooped him up, and he kept purring until sadly suffering from 2 other major blood clots in his lungs and brain, which occurred 3 hours later. He passed away while cradled in my arms. My Solomon summoned me, led me to where I needed to go, and reunited with me once more in his final moments. I'm at a loss to explain what I witnessed or how it occurred. When I caught sight of him down by the creek, the way he was depicted seemed so strange to me. It seemed almost as if I was watching him through an old grainy recording. This gave the encounter a somewhat dreamlike quality to it. And what's more, his eyes were solid black, not the usual cloudy hue that was his usual trademark. Even the vet was convinced that it would have been impossible for him to travel from the spot where I first saw him. I don't fully comprehend what happened, but I'm beginning to think that he found a way to lead me back to him as his final moments approached, possibly through some kind of apparition. I will never forget the final moments we shared. I miss you, Solomon.